What an interesting story to think how you went through basically a 2-year drought of trying to find a new job, air quotes,
Yeah.
or some
Yeah.
sort of direction. And being able to get to that point where, some people may have quit. Some people that went through the craziness of 2020 and lost their job may have people that they know that also lost their lives because they quit. They gave up. They couldn't see that through. So the fact that you got through that for 2 years and then it got to somebody that had a huge heart and actually wanted to care and do the right thing, look where it set you up now. It's easy for us to get into the context of what you do every day and how you love all of that. But it's also easy for us to bypass the path that it took you to get there. So can you kind of break that down a bit, what that looks like from your perspective now for people that are going through that sort of situation?
So for years before that, for 10 plus years before that, I was working as a professional photographer. So I worked as a portrait photographer, and if you tell anyone, like if you look at joserosado.photo.com, it's all the lifestyle and fashion work that I did that I loved and I genuinely loved doing. But let's be real, I also did automotive racing, real estate. I did whatever paid the bills. You know what I mean? Corporate headshots paid really well. I did that a lot. So I did that for 10 years, and then when around the time I met my wife, I wanted something more stability and a steady check. So I started working for a New York company. And while, don't get me wrong, I'm still working my way back up to what I used to get paid, because that was New York City money, and that was obviously a great paycheck. But I was just not in it. You know what I mean? And I was at that time trying to do my hand entrepreneurial side hustles and things I could do, but I was so scared of telling them that like it just burned me out on both ends of the candle, where I was like keeping this secret and then trying to do two things at once, and using half my ass for both of them. Neither one of them really worked out. So when I got laid off, it was because the company was going public and I was a contractor, and it was last one in, first one out. I was there almost 4 years. But I don't care what anyone says. I know that the reality is, if I was an all-star, they would have figured out a way to keep me. Like, the performance part of it, let's be real, that's part of the equation.
It's a major part.
So I knew, I wasn't in it, my heart wasn't in it, and that's okay too, right? Like, I always tell people, you don't have to do what you love.
You gotta be honest with yourself, though.
Very apparent. Right. Yeah. Like, if, but at the same time, if you're miserable, change something, and I didn't know how to do it. I was trying to do two things at once, and then life was like, and gave me what happened. Now, the timing was also really difficult, if I'm honest, because I just moved to Maryland from Philadelphia to go from fun weekend kind of guy that's dating my kid's mom to full-time stepdad. So now it was we were a year into living in Maryland. We had full custody of the kids, and then I lost my job. So it was an interesting time, because I was always very pragmatic, and I had 2 degrees, and I had no problem going to Planet Fitness like I've done in the past when I was living in Philly and working for $8 an hour. I don't care. I'll do what I have to do. But the thing was, I was at this point in my career where now I couldn't even do that, because I was older and had too much experience, and then they were like, this is too much of a gap. So I couldn't find anything. I mean, and what's really great was around that time, I was trying everything I could to mailing out tons of applications, filling out things every day. And it got to about 8 months in, and I had nothing. And I was getting this real kind of breaking point. And I went to my parents, my wife, and I said, look, I'm pretty much running out of money, but what I want is this. Give me 1 month. Give me 1 month to just do my own thing, and then we'll reassess. So they agreed. And in that time, I started going, you know what? I got to go back to making things for myself and feeling some sort of ownership of what I was doing and feeling like I was making progress. So I started writing, and I always loved writing, but I never liked blogging in the sense of photography, because, a lot of times it was very dry. It was here's the setup, here's what I shot, here's what it looked like with the lights before and after. And I hated it. I was like, this is dumb. So I just started writing long form content about what I was feeling. And it really actually started resonating with people. And that became, after that, out of that came creativesagainstdepression.com. So I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm writing. And within 2 weeks of writing, I got hired by a company to write content for their website, like a photo company. And I thought to myself, in 2 weeks of just doing my own thing, I made more progress in the last 8 months of going on interviews after interviews and all these sorts of things. So I said, all right, let me keep going. What's something else I'm wanting to do? And a podcast came to my mind. So I said, all right, I got 1 month. I'm going to have to make it work. So I started the podcast. And literally within the end of the first month, I went to a it was a phase one kind of event that our buddy was talking at. So phase one is like a big medium format camera manufacturer, and he was, sponsored at the time. I think he still is. And he was going to speak. So I was just going to support a friend and network and whatever. So we're talking to people there at the event at phase one who I'd known over the years. And I told them about the podcast. And they said, oh, so you're going to be at I'm blanking out on the name, but at oh man, this is going to bug me. It's the Photo Plus. So literally the larger of the year. So it's the one at the end of the year in New York. So it's one of the largest photo expos in the world. So Photo Plus in New York at the Javits Center. I hate crowds. Like, I have a huge, borderline phobia of crowds. So they tell me, oh, well, you're going to Photo Plus, right? And I'm thinking to myself, you couldn't catch me dead at the Javits Center. What? And I said, you know what? This is what I need. This is what I need to be my, anchor. I said, it's next month, right? I had no idea. They're like, yeah, it's in a month. I was like, of course, I'll be there. So I told myself I have a month now to finish recording these episodes, get the website up, and launch the podcast so that we can go to this expo and then try and see if we can get people to be on our show. And we did, and it was, I'll send you some photos. I mean, it was just long story short, some of the most surreal stuff that ever happened that you couldn't even make up. The photographers that I've known over the years who were the Rolling Stones of the photo world that were on the show, that, people were supportive, people wanted to be part of it. We went to all these after parties. I looked at my Apple Watch at the time. We went up to New York, slept on couches, walked everywhere. I walked 23 miles in 2.5 days. Most of that was obviously walking around the actual expo, and the city. But yeah. So at that time I said, all right, can you guys give me till the end of the year? And I went back to my wife and my parents, and I said, can you guys give me till the end of the year? And they saw what we were doing. They saw how I was suddenly motivated and I wasn't deeply depressed anymore and frustrated. And fast forward a year, we did 100 episodes. And at the end, it was 3 days a week of the show. And after 100 episodes, and then also doing stuff for Creatives Against Depression, for me, it was a good stopping point, pausing point. And then at that point I said, I want to be a therapist, but I didn't know what that would look like. And that was literally when we paused, was September of 2000. I'll say 15. Might have been 16. No, it was 16. 2016. And that October, I met my boss at a training. I think everyone's got something that they're good at. And if you just give yourself the time and the space to just see what's possible, I think that it's totally something that can happen. You know what I mean? I used to tell people how awesome podcasts were. I used to go around for a while after that, and I was trying to consult, trying to get people to start their business to have a podcast. And when you look at the data behind it and the metrics, and now years later, it's exploded